Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. We are the Mile High Property Brothers. Today, we're gonna get right into it. We'll be talking about the 5 things not to do when buying a home here in Denver.
Yeah, super important. Let's check it out, guys. What's up, guys? I'm Eli Schmidt. This is my partner, Will Grimes. And if it's your first time checking out the channel, thanks for coming. But while you're here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell. That way you get notified whenever we drop a new video all week long telling you everything there is to know about moving to or living in the entire Denver, Colorado area.
100%. And we are licensed brokers here in the state of Colorado, which means as much as we love making these videos, we would love more to help you with those real estate needs. So that number that's popping up below, we are the guys who answer the phone calls, text messages, and those emails. So if there's something we can do for you, we would love to do that. But that being said, let's talk about the 5 things you should not be doing when moving or buying a house in Denver.
Now this first one, guys, we see it a lot, we mitigate it a lot, but ultimately that is focusing on the wrong things. And Will's gonna dive into that for us.
Just trying to break this down as simplistically as possible. It's focusing on what you can change, what you can't change, right? So it's getting stuck in the weeds with, are you finding a home that's got a great kitchen and it looks great and you love it and the backsplash color is amazing and whatever it may be, but the home is a 2-car garage, not a 3-car garage.
Like the one you wanted.
Or it's got a super small yard and that was a deal breaker for you, and it's like, hey, no matter how much you love that kitchen and no matter how long you live in that home, you're not gonna be able to make that backyard bigger. You're not gonna be able to make that 2-car a 3-car, right? Like you can do some porch in the backyard or some covered stuff on the side, but it's just not gonna be what you want. Now, it doesn't mean you can't change your mind and still love that kitchen and decide to pick that home, but really just means that you've got to stay super focused on your non-negotiables and the things that just aren't gonna change. So if there's a home that you love, but it's in a different school district, or it's in a different neighborhood that you didn't want, or if it's, hey, this is too far for our commute, right? Like we want it to be within 25 minutes of Denver Tech Center. This is 45 minutes out, but it looks so great. Like you've really just got to ask yourself, hey, are the things that are not going to change about the home, are those deal breakers for me? Am I going to be settling? Am I going to have buyer's remorse down the road? Or, hey, are we actually okay with certain things? And sometimes clients change their mind. They don't necessarily need the bigger backyard that they thought. It's just making sure that you're asking yourself the right questions. And we're helping you with those questions to make sure that, yes, down the road, 6 months, you're not having that buyer's remorse. You're not upset at yourself with, I don't even like the kitchen anymore because I'm so upset at the yard.
Yeah. Well, and it happens on the flip side too, to where you may find a home that has a beautiful yard, that has a 3-car garage, that's in the school district that you wanted, that literally checks all those boxes, but maybe you're so focused on the poor paint color or the carpet when you wanted hardwood floor or the kitchen that needs updating. Those are all things that you can very easily change. So when you found the home that has all the check boxes checked of the things you cannot change, it's real important to not get bogged down in the weeds on the things that you can easily change that maybe just aren't your favorite.
Correct, and there are some affordable ways to do that. Painting your cabinets and putting different handles on them makes it extremely modern. So is the flow of the home great? Is there a lot of great things about it that, yes, with a little bit more improvement, you could make it into the home that you want? It has everything that you need. Just making sure, again, that you're staying focused on those and making the right decisions.
All right, now point number 2, this is a hot topic right now, but buyers are always very curious. And ultimately, that is focusing too much on the interest rate. And, before you think and you look at us and you're like, oh yeah, easy for you guys to say, here's what we mean.
So in regards to like interest rates being heightened right now, yes, they are definitely a lot higher than they used to be. COVID was an extremely great opportunity as far as like high 1s, low 2s, mid 2s as far as interest rates. Now they're starting to trickle back up. Depending on your credit and where you're at with your scores and the structure of your loan, they're going to be anywhere from high 4s to mid 5s, and some maybe
high
5s.
Yep.
Some are even starting to touch like 6 a little bit. The biggest thing that we want you guys to keep in mind is, instead of looking over your loan for a course of 30 years, if you're doing a 30-year fixed loan and, hey, Will, I'm starting to touch 6 instead of 5, or I'm at 5.5 instead of 4.5, and hey, we talked about buying points down. Apologies for speaking so loosely. Yes, it is a chunk of change to buy a point down. It's not just a couple of $1,000s. Yes, it can be, in the realm of $15,000 all the way to $60,000, depending on what you're doing in the structure of your loan. So Apologies for speaking loosely during one of those videos. I appreciate the corrections in the comments and making sure that I come correct for you guys. So I appreciate that. But getting to the interest rate, again, instead of looking at your loan, regardless of where that interest rate is at for you specifically, if you're looking at that loan over the course of a 30-year fixed loan, and hey, if we're a point higher now, it's going to be this much money. Yes, if you keep that loan for 30 years and never refi it and never sell that home and buy a new home, yes, it's going to be that. Do interest rates have a history of coming back down? And is there an ebb and flow to the economy? Yes, there is. So if you're looking at it over the course of, hey, what does this loan look like on this interest rate now? And what does the next year look like, 24 months look like? And hey, are we going to sell at some point, or will we decide to refinance into a lower rate? Yes, why is this important? Because regardless of where the interest rate is right now, as far as your deal, appreciation in Colorado is continuing to grow. So whether your interest rate is 2.5, 5.5, depending on the time of where interest rates are at, one thing that is steady is Colorado's growth. So one thing that's going to continue to go up is the equity that you're going to have in a home. So buying now, even though the interest rates are a little bit higher right now, is still better than buying 3 years from now, because it'd be a lower rate. You'd be losing out on 3 years worth of equity.
And it might be a higher rate too. You never know.
And it could be a high rate, but the bottom line is, a lot of you homeowners that are out there before, like, you do know there's an ebb and flow to this. Yes, it's not fun of where they're at now, but this is also more regular as far as like where they were at. This whole COVID thing and the opportunity that was there was awesome, but it's back to like where it used to be. And importantly to that as well is like, hey, it's not, free money is not good for the economy. So things starting to come back out and starting to stabilize is also good for the economy. So a lot of food for thought here, just giving you guys some context as far as some things to think about. Yes, if you add up that loan over 30 years, a point higher is gonna be significantly more as far as the interest. Refining at a better rate when the time is appropriate. If you end up selling at home in 3 to 5 years, just start looking at the loan for what you're going to be using it for versus just drawing it out and looking at that big number at the very back of it, unless you're that person that's going to buy and live in a home for the next 30 years.
Right.
And never refi.
Now, 2 points I want to add on to this is that now you are starting to see some different loan programs become available that were not so popular when interest rates, were extremely low. But now that they're starting to creep up, they are becoming more and more popular, like adjustable rate mortgages and things like that.
Correct.
Now, don't be afraid of these necessarily. Definitely do your due diligence and make sure you've got a phenomenal lender that you're talking to who knows their stuff about these. But it's not these big scary loan products that you saw that caused the market crash in 07, 08. They're different. There are stipulations in place. There's a lot more criteria that you need to meet that you did back then. But there are some other loan options out there. And then the other point that I want to mention, and this is very, very important, because if you're not buying a house, you're probably renting a house, right? When you're renting out a house, do you think that you're not paying the interest rate for that landlord? Because you are. You're paying the principal, you're paying their interest rate, and their profit,
whatever their note
cash
is.
flow.
Your interest rate plus your mortgage, it's all wrapped into one payment. So if that guy's spending $3,500 on his mortgage for that place, you're gonna be paying that and then some, so we can make a couple bucks on it. So great point. If you are renting, you're paying for the entire thing and then some.
You're paying interest anyway, right? So regardless if you have the loan or it's somebody else's loan that you're paying, you're the one paying the bill.
All right, guys, moving right along, we'll be talking about buyer's remorse. It has to do with a little bit of that first one in regards to like a big yard and not a big yard. I just caught up in like the shiny stuff, but more importantly to that, and having buyer's remorse typically comes from buying in an area that you don't want to be in. So prior to actually going on a contract on a home or looking at homes specifically, finding the areas that you feel would be productive for you, whether it's your commute, school districts, livability, commute to the mountains, pleasurability, anything you can think of, finding those top areas where you want to be is going to be super important. Because again, even if you do get the big yard and the amazing kitchen and the amazing garage, it's everything, but it's not in the area that you're going to be wanting. I promise you, there could be some buyer's remorse there because of the commute you're handling every day, or because it's just not the right vibe or right area that you want to be in. So narrowing down your areas before you even start looking at homes could not be more important.
Yeah, and this really comes down to having a good real estate advisor, such as Will and myself, because these are things.
Ooh, see what you
like
did
that.
there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now, this is something, guys, that we have conversations with a ton with our clients, and we will frequently talk our clients out of homes, or at least ask them the right questions that they need to ask themselves so that they can make that decision.
We will never talk you out of a home.
Correct.
You're never going to hear from us, hey,
Correct.
don't buy that home.
Correct.
That's not what we're here for. We
Yes.
are here to help you guys with all of your wants and your needs and based off of what you you guys have told us, asking you the right questions to make sure that you come to the appropriate conclusions for yourselves. But bottom line is we work for you.
Yeah, and we do see our clients, they'll get super excited and just super emotional about a property, and we see that they are ignoring some of the rules that they put in place for themselves, the guidelines in the very beginning.
And that's more to like that first point that we spoke to. When it comes to like the buyer's remorse in the area, when we're helping you guys navigate your process, we're actually diving into areas first before we're even looking at homes. That way, if you do start falling in love with some homes, at least we are falling into the area that's gonna be most appropriate for you guys.
That's right. All right, point number 4 here. This one is extremely important, probably way more important than you may be thinking, and that is choosing the right buyer agent.
Correct, guys. So most commonly known is like when you're using a buyer's agent, typically in real estate, whoever is selling the home pays for the listing agent and pays for your agent on the buy side, right? The seller pays for both of those. So when you're picking a buyer agent, a lot of times we'll just, hey, whoever calls me from Zillow or whatever it may be.
Aunt's cousin.
And because it doesn't cost you any money, is it a big deal? Like is running contracts a big deal? Is executing on contracts a big deal? Yes, it's a big deal. And even though we don't necessarily cost you any money, we could definitely cost you an opportunity on a home if things aren't structured correctly or if things aren't appropriate on the buy side, right? So yes, having your lender dialed in and yes, picking the right buyer's agents prevents you from missing out on an opportunity, which in my opinion is more important. I would rather miss out on a little bit of money than missing out on a home I would like to raise my family.
Yeah. Now, don't make the mistake of assuming that just because your sister's cousin, aunt, or whatever that is licensed, that they know what they're doing and they're competent, because the barrier of entry for getting into real estate is not the highest. You're not having to pass the bar exam or anything like that. It's not easy, but it's not the hardest thing either. Definitely don't make that assumption that, hey, because they're licensed, they're probably good, because all these little conversations that he's talking about that we're having with our clients, that we're having with listing agents on homes that we're writing offers on, those conversations, if handled inappropriately, if that contract is even just a little bit messy, that gets you put right to the bottom of the pile, and that's costing you the home of your dreams right there.
Let's just give you a prime example really quick before we get to our final 5th bullet point. But for example, yes, a lot of homes are going over asking price right now, and yes, a lot of buyers are willing to cover the what's called appraisal gap. So if a home is on the market for $900,000 and you're offering $1 million, so you're offering $100,000 over, and then in additional provisions you say that you are prepared to cover any appraisal gap. Okay, but understand, if it appraises for lower than the list price, you could be on the hook for more than $100,000, right? And a lot of agents aren't thinking of this. Yes, there are some homes out there right now, especially because the market has settled a little bit, where, hey, not only does it not appraise at where you're offering, it doesn't appraise for even where they asked for in the first place. So it ends up appraising for $875. The problem is if you wrote your contract with your buyer's agent that says buyers are prepared to cover any and all appraisal gap, and you're assuming that it's the gap between the list price and the offer and the price that you're offering, then you're planning for that $100,000 at worst case scenario. The problem is if it goes below $900 and it's $875, now you're on the hook for $125,000. Where's that extra $25,000 going to come from? Can you afford it? Can someone in your family afford it? Or is it going to end up wrecking that deal that you were a week away from purchasing, all because your buyer agent didn't write, buyer agrees to cover any and all appraisal gap between the list price and offer price. It's just a little tweak, and this is just one example of 100 examples that we could go through, and this could be a completely different video. The bottom line is, yes, there are a lot of things that matter within your contract and how you decide to word things. Yes, having guys that are experienced, you have a great reputation as far as representing clients and putting content out here for you guys on YouTube does matter. So yes, we would love to work with you guys. Moving right along, after that little sales pitch, is our 5th one.
Yeah.
And this is making sure that we are what?
We got to win the house.
Correct, guys. So a lot of folks want to get water bills and electrical bills and what work has been done on the property, and can we get a property disclosure? And sometimes listing agents will offer that. Sometimes sellers will have that prepared when a home is on the market, but a lot of times they don't. And it's not because they're hiding anything. It's because they're still in the process of making sure that they're picking the right buyer for their home before they go continue into buying their new home. So trying to find all of that due diligence document stuff that's typically done during the process of winning the home is something that is super important, right? So what Eli's getting at is like, hey, we've got to put our best foot forward and focus on what we can change, what we cannot change. Is it the right area? Is it the right home for us? Putting our best foot forward to winning that offer. Now, once you win the offer and win that home, you are not married to the home. You have your under contract process, and you have several phases during your due diligence process to fall out of contract, not pick that home, and get your earnest money back. Yep. And that's during a time for all of the due diligence docs, the property disclosures, the inspections, the appraisals, everything. If a seller's trying to throw all of that stuff out there to any possible buyer, it's just not feasible to manage. So anytime the best offer comes through, that's the best offer for the seller, and and they decide to go into contract with someone, that's when everything is disclosed, right? So in a relationship standpoint, I'm sure you're not putting your personal life out there to every single person out there that you could possibly have a relationship with ever. No. Typically, when you decide to date someone and move forward with them, you typically need to go through how you were raised and what your childhood was like and what makes you tick. And that's typically what's done here. Once you guys have won that offer, you haven't bought the home, you're not married to the home. Now you have an opportunity during your due diligence time to make sure that everything is savvy and according to how you feel they should be accorded to.
And with the speed at which things are moving in this market, while you're trying to gather all this documentation and you're trying to research the HOA and look up where the source of water comes from in this particular city, the house is gone, guys. Someone's
under contract
purchased
with someone else, right?
It's under contract, and again, maybe it comes from fear because other states maybe don't operate this way, but Colorado has so many outs after you've won the house, after we're under contract, where we get the opportunity to find all this information, and if any of it's a deal breaker for us, we can terminate and move on to something else.
So it's just understanding the cycle of operations and like, hey, being committed and finding the things that you can't change, about a home, making sure it's the right area and that you're not gonna have the buyer's remorse and that you are all in on the home. And look, once we're under contract and we win a home, as long as the home is what they say it is, and it's in a condition that's adequate for you within the realm of an inspection objection, as long as the home is worth what they say it's worth, in conjunction with any appraisal gap that you have appropriate for that home, then hey, then you're gonna have a deal in addition to all the due diligence docs. And if there's something that's not savvy for you, then hey, then there's not a deal and we can continue to go back on the market, get your earnest money back and move forward. But trying to put the cart before the horse is going to end up just letting that home go into someone else's hands, which is a bummer because most homes here in Colorado, we've got good soil here, and very rarely do we have homes that are just so bad you're glad you didn't buy it. Typically, it's that we didn't move quickly enough to at least get that negotiation process started by winning that offer.
So if you guys are thinking about buying a home in Denver or any market for that matter, and you're reaching out to Will and Eli, these are 5 tips that you definitely do not want to forget.
Correct. And please reach out to us because, as we always remind you, yes, we are licensed brokers here in the state of Colorado, and just as much as we love making these videos, we would love more to help you with those real estate needs. So that number that's popping back up below, we are the guys who answer the phone calls, text messages, and those emails. So if we can help you, we would love to. But until next video, you guys enjoy your week. We will see you very soon.
See you guys.